Hi, everyone. Welcome to My Baby Experts. So happy to spend tonight with you. So happy you're all here with us. And we are just going to give it a moment for everybody to join us for tonight's live stream. And I'm going to check to make sure that there we are. We are live on Facebook. And I am super happy to be able to do this episode with you. And actually, as I went back tonight to look at all the years that we've been doing this, I realized that tonight is actually our 100th episode, and I could not think of a better way to spend that with you and then with our very special guests and a topic that is just so important, and I'm just so honored to be able to bring to you tonight. So first of all, we have a lot of new people. I see everybody jumping into the chat room right now. Hi, guys. Hi, welcome, everyone. Welcome. We are here live, and I wanted to just introduce myself since many of you may not know me. If you are new, we always love to welcome new people in. So if you're new, please tell me you're new. Say, hi, I'm new. Go ahead and just post it right there in the chat. I also would love to know where you're all from. So you can do that right now too. And myself, let me just explain a little bit of my background. I have been working with new moms and babies and dads and families for over 27 years. I was a registered nurse, labor and delivery nurse. I'm a certified nurse midwife. I've delivered over 600 babies, and I'm also an international board certified lactation consultant. We've been streaming live for over 7 years now, and now that we get to do this through Facebook, we get to do it with all of you right here in the chat, which it makes me so, so happy. And for all of you guys who know and been with us for a long time, you know how much we have gotten out of this and what an amazing community we have built. So for all of you guys who are new, look where everybody's from. My goodness. Yes, fantastic. Fantastic. Welcome, Becky. I see you're new. Fantastic. So we have an amazing community of amazing moms and dads and experts, lots of experts that come to help us, support us, and just bring all kinds of topics from pregnancy to childbirth to baby care, baby wearing, and then also mom support and help and postpartum care, which is what we're going to be talking about tonight. So super honored to be able to bring you this show, which is I'm going to be bringing on our guests. We have some really special guests. We're going to be talking about postpartum depression and also about the new film that's out, the new documentary, When the Bough Breaks. And so tonight I have some very special guests who are the creators of this new movie that just was released last week, and also an expert that was also featured in the film. So you guys have a real treat tonight, and we're going to have an amazing conversation. When I first saw the movie, or I saw about the movie, I thought, oh my God, I need to reach out, and I immediately reached out. And we watched it this weekend, Joe and I. Joe's my husband. Many of you know him, Joe. Joe's over in the, go ahead. Joe's going to come say hi. Joe's over in the other room. There's Joe. And when you see me posting here, I'm not that talented. It's actually not me. It's Joe posting for me. So you guys can all know, and you can see that Joe's actually in there typing. But we watched it this weekend, and I was just so moved, and it was just this moment of, my goodness, we need to talk more about this. This is a topic that does not get enough attention, does not get enough awareness, and it is super, super important. And when we posted it on our Facebook wall with all of you guys, it was amazing the response that we got of how many of you have either experienced it, know someone who has, or are just want to learn more. And so I'm just really grateful that you're here. So I don't want to waste any more time. I see you guys make me so happy to see you all here. But I want to bring in our special guest for the evening. I want to start the live stream, and let's get them in here so we can do this interview. Okay, so hold on one second while I control all the technology as well. Give me 1 second here. Here we go. We're going to bring everybody on. Unmute. And 1, 2, 3, 4. There we are. Hi, guys. Welcome. Oh, are you guys all unmuted? Let me see. Did I do it wrong? Oh, hold on. I didn't unmute you. Now you're unmuted. Okay, now say hi.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi. There you go. Hi, oh, I got nervous for a second. Hi, everyone. Oh, welcome to our show. And thank you so much for doing this. Let me just say we have right here with us, we have Jamie Lee Littman. She's the director and the producer of the new movie, When the Bough Breaks. And we have Lindsay Gerszt, who's the executive producer of the film. And we also have Dr. Diana Lynn Barnes. She's a psychotherapist that specializes in maternal and women's mood disorders and reproductive health. So I am just really excited to have all of you guys here. Thank you so much for doing this with us and bringing this very important topic out, not just tonight, but I mean through the film.
Thank you for having us. Yeah, thank you so much for having us. Such a pleasure to be here.
My honor, my honor. We have a whole bunch of people in the chat room right now. They're super excited to be able to have this conversation and to hear all of your expertise. And I just want to get started by asking Jamie Lynn. I know you're the one who actually had the thought for this film, and I wanted to just find out, what had you decide to even start? What inspired you to create the movie?
Well, it was actually the idea originated. Tanya Newbold, she's in the film. She's also a producer on the film. I was making a documentary about, 10 years ago, when I first met her. No, 7 years ago. Sorry about that. And we started talking. I had just had a new baby and she's an actress. So I had interviewed her for my documentary and we got to talking and she said, I have an idea for a documentary. When I had my daughter, I had extreme severe postpartum depression. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't know how to go about getting help. She read Brooke Shields' book, Down Came the Rain. That's what spoke to her and told her, this is what I have, is postpartum depression. She said, there really needs to be a documentary about this. I couldn't find any information. Is that something that you would be interested in doing? And I didn't know much about it. I had a new baby, but I didn't experience it. And I said, well, let me look into that. And I kind of associate it with, unfortunately, what most people do. It's what we see in the news. And it's not really covered very much in baby classes. So I just said, let me look into this. And I started looking on the internet and reading the numbers of, affecting 1 in 7 women. And I'm thinking, gosh, of the 50 moms I know that just had babies, look at how many are affected, but yet I don't know this. And so just on a whim, I went to a mommy group that I was part of, and I put an ad up to see what kind of response I would get. And the ad said, looking for moms to participate in a documentary about postpartum depression. And within 24 hours, I had over 100 moms write me, just pouring their hearts out, saying the exact same thing that Tanya did. Nobody's talking about this because of the stigma, the shame, the fear, the judgment. There needs to be a documentary about this. I want to share my story in order to help women. And I just said, wow, this is so much bigger than anybody even knows. And as a mom and a filmmaker, I felt I had absolutely no choice but to make a film that would not only help people, but possibly save lives.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's amazing. And I guess when I think about, how prevalent this really is, it's amazing that no one's really addressed it until now. I mean, I'm so glad that you did, but and I can see why moms feel so alone and think it's them, because there's really not a lot of resource out there that they can go and watch, or it's not being brought out into the main media where we're talking about it, that moms know that this is something that can happen and what to look for. Diana, what is the prevalence? Just to bring it up just for a minute, just so people understand like how common this really can be.
Would you be surprised if I told you that 800,000 to 1 million women each year have some form of depression in the postpartum period?
Wow.
Pretty astounding numbers.
Wow. Yeah. I just got goosebumps listening to that and thinking of how many of them are suffering alone.
And there's still a lot of misinformation as far as we've come, in terms of research and understanding. There's still so much more and so much misinformation out there, like you were saying about media, how the media will call it postpartum depression when it's really postpartum psychosis, which is so rare.
Yep, totally. No, and Lindsay, for a moment, just you're really highlighted in the movie. The movie is really taking us through your life and your experience with postpartum depression. And I just wanted to, hear from you, because I know that when I watched it, I was just so moved by your authenticity, by your courage to go ahead and speak up, to go through the process, and take us all on the journey with you to see what you've gone through, in knowing, the whole time that the reason that you're doing this and exposing all of this is to help other people. So I just want to say to you personally how moved I was watching, and when I got to meet you in person, I just felt very connected to you. So,
Thank you.
how did it feel for you to be a part of this project?
Well, I think when you suffer from any illness, mental health illness, and you struggle so much, you want to find a bigger purpose to it. And I just feel so fortunate that I was given this outlet, to make this. And when we were making it, I wasn't worried about, it's so far away from people seeing it. And I really shared every deepest, darkest thing that was going on with me without thinking of the outcome. And I'm just so glad I did, because now that the film's out, I'm seeing the results. And just by me sharing my story and all the therapies I went to, and just everything, it really helped me. Because if you have to go through something like that, there has to be a greater purpose. And to help people, there isn't anything kind of greater than that.
Absolutely. And I don't think that, the personal experience, it's not something we would ever wish for ourselves, but once you've already gone through that, and you've been through something like that, to be able to turn that into being able to support others has to be a great feeling to be able to, and to hear from others every day, which I know you're on the Facebook wall, you're talking to moms every day. And
I do our social media. I'm on it pretty much all day, every day, and I reply to everybody. And I love connecting with other moms that have either gone through it or suffering now. I love providing resources. I am not an expert, which is great that Diana's here right now, but I know what they went through, and what I went through was pretty serious, and it was pretty, as dark as you can get. So
yeah, absolutely. Before we go even deeper into the conversation, I'd love to be able to share the trailer from the movie, so everybody can get a little taste. And believe me, guys, this is a small taste of the actual film. Like, you really want to see this. It's available on iTunes. Joe's going to go ahead and post up the link right now for anybody who wants to see it. It's really worth it. If you are pregnant, if you are planning another pregnancy, if you know anyone who will ever now and in the future, this is a movie for you. So if you know any women, then you need to be watching this movie. And that's really how I feel, is that it's not just for somebody who may think, oh, not everybody knows. I mean, you may not have depression with your first or second, and it could happen. You want to be aware, and awareness is really going to empower you to be able to get the support. So I'm going to go ahead and flip over to the video for a moment, and then we'll all come back. So hold on one second.
Motherhood can be exciting. It can be a blessing. It can be a dream come true. But for 1 in 5 new mothers, it can be something else entirely.
Oh, I guess something's really wrong.
Women all over the world suffer from this, and it can occur to anybody.
There's a lot of surprises, a lot of things that nobody can prepare you for.
This singular thought just kept playing in my mind, which was, this girl would be better off with another woman as her mother.
I want a baby my whole life, and all of a sudden I have her, and they bring her over to me, and I'm like frozen.
I was very quiet and withdrawn. I thought, well, I can't tell anybody my secret.
The sleep deprivation was starting to get to her, and she took her own life.
I put a pillow over her face and just held it there until she stopped struggling.
How do we help these women from going through this?
That's why we're doing this, to educate.
We have a chance to make a difference and maybe save someone's life.
I felt like it was my fault because I didn't educate myself more.
Part of the depression is the guilt that goes along with it.
there's still so much stigma.
I think people forget that mental health is a sickness of the brain.
It's a huge issue that is not discussed.
We weren't made aware of all the risk factors, and Kelly actually had a lot of them.
Doctors are seeing more patients. It's easy for people to slip through the cracks.
When you hear about these things, you hear about how many red flags were up, it's shocking that we don't look at postpartum as something that's legitimate.
Everybody keeps a lid on it because of shame or fear or judgment, but it's amazing when you share how many stories you'll hear back.
It's so scary when you're in it, but it does shift.
Like, wow, I'm not the only one, I'm not the first, I won't be the last.
I'm proud of her for speaking up, because that takes a lot of strength.
If my wife's death can result in the prevention of other deaths, at least it wasn't in vain.
To be able to change the course of someone's life by just sharing my story, you can't even put it into words.
Okay, we're back. We're back. Oh my goodness. Just watching it again right there just brought me back to so many parts of this film where, it's not that easy to watch some of it. We're talking about real life, life and death. And I think that's what brings the seriousness to the forefront of like really how serious, and it's so important that it was shown in all of its honesty. Because people really need to know just how severe and how emergent this problem can be. Jamie Lynn, we had, you did have some, I'm just wondering if you're muted there. Hold on a second. I want to make sure that you're not. I can see a little mute. There you go. Okay. Jamie Lynn, you had some well-known people do the film with you too. Brooke Shields, Carney Wilson, come forward. So, this goes across, this is not just for one, type of person. It could be people who, all different cultures, all different nationalities, all different races, all different economic status. It doesn't stick to one.
It doesn't play favoritism.
No,
Yes.
And I think that's a big point, for us, is that this can happen to anybody. And, to have, when celebrities come forward and speak out, it's normalizing it. And that's what we need to do. And that's what this film does. And it was really important, and it took a lot of, persistence on Lindsay's part and a lot of reaching out. And, once we set forward to do this, we were very fortunate, met Diana very early on, and she was so supportive and gave us, resources and information. And once we moved forward, everybody, the doors opened in this community and they embraced us, which I just feel so honored and blessed, because it's such a huge responsibility. I'm not an expert, to take something on like this and do it justice. And at the end of the day, that was the most important thing. And, once this community embraced us and we're proud of what we made, that was everything, and I think that's, if it's happening to this many women, we need to make, this is normal. This is a public health issue. And if people aren't speaking out, they're not going to get help. They're not going to seek treatment, and it's going to get worse. And unfortunately, we talk about psychosis, and, Diana can touch on all this. Yes, you're looking at the numbers being 1 in 1,000, but we need to stop. We need to intervene in the beginning so people can get better, because if you seek help, you will get better from this. And I think that's where, when you bring celebrities and their voices to it, it just draws more attention to it. And that's, that was the goal, to get as many people to see it as possible, to really make a change.
Definitely.
I think also, there's just so much stigma still. And moms think, if I have depression, that must mean I'm not very strong. Instead of recognizing that this is a disorder, this is an illness, and that is very treatable.
Yeah. Yeah. You started to talk earlier, Diana, about the prevalence. And, we talked about the numbers that we're seeing. And I think you guys talked about in the film, 1 in 5 women will experience postpartum depression. Did I get that right?
Well, in the film, when we say 1 in 5, we're looking at, postpartum depression or a perinatal mood disorder. So ranging from the mild form of baby blues.
Okay, maybe we could talk a little bit about the difference of that, because there's a spectrum of, where people are on with this. And we talk about 1 in 5, and, there may be moms out there who are saying, I feel down. Do I have depression? Am I going to hurt myself? All those other things. So Diana, could you just elaborate on what the different, spectrum of this is?
Absolutely. First of all, I just want to say that postpartum depression doesn't really look or feel like depression. It feels like unbelievable anxiety. And sometimes, women will call my office and they'll say, well, I don't think I'm depressed. I'm just really, really anxious. But that is the most common way in which you see postpartum depression present. And then sometimes women will have these kind of very disturbing, intrusive thoughts or images of harm coming to the baby, or they even see themselves harming or injuring their child in some way. And we want to distinguish that from postpartum psychosis, because in the first kind of scene I'm giving you, what we're talking about is obsessive compulsive features with postpartum depression, because women usually know the thoughts are really foreign and they're very disturbed by them. And then they will go about kind of creating strategies to avoid what they think is inevitable. One of the other ways in which we see postpartum depression present is with panic. It kind of feels like a panic attack or like a heart attack. I've had a number of women, come to me out of the emergency room because they went there thinking they were having a heart attack. And what it really was panic. And then one of the other things we're learning now is that, birth itself can be a traumatic experience for some women. And I always like to say that, trauma is in the eye of the beholder. Mm-hmm. What you and I may think is or is not traumatic may be very different from how somebody else perceives it. But birth can be a traumatic experience depending on what happens during labor or delivery. And sometimes in certain women where there has been a history perhaps of some kind of childhood trauma, the act of giving birth sometimes can revive the memories of that.
Yes. I've actually seen that through, in my practice delivering patients and delivering babies where women have past experiences, whether it's sexual abuse or other things that really can get very triggered during pregnancy and then with the birth itself. And it brings up, really having providers, whether it's the OB or the midwife or whoever they're seeing, being really aware of their history of asking those questions. It may not be the thing that they come out with to express. They may not think it has any relation to what's happening now, and it certainly does. And so I think the awareness not only needs to be there for moms, dads, the community, but for providers, they really need to be aware, to be doing some more universal screening and risk and high risk, and to understand what are those high risk. What would you consider somebody high risk? I wanted to go to Lindsay for a minute and just ask you, Lindsay, I know this started with the birth of your son, and you talk about it in the film. And how quickly after the delivery did you realize there was something wrong? And then what was it that you experienced?
It actually started when I was pregnant. I became very anxious. I had severe OCD and I became depressed. I have a history with depression. And so I prepared myself to possibly have postpartum depression because a history of depression, can lead to postpartum depression. So I was on medication already through my pregnancy. And then I had a very, very traumatic delivery. I was induced, and I was in labor for 38 hours, pushing for 6.5 hours. and they kept pumping me with drugs because the pain was so intense. And when my son came out, they called code blue on him because he was probably stoned out of his mind. And there I am lying on the bed. I think he was delivered with forceps and episiotomy. I hope that's not too much to
not at all. No.
To tell. No. I think this is the right audience to say that to.
Absolutely.
And so they're sewing me up, and I see them call code blue on my son, and I'm just like, what's going on? Then cut to 2 hours later, he finally starts crying. He's okay. In the hospital, they wanted to make sure I got a good enough sleep, so they would bring him in at 5 a.m. to try to breastfeed. And then 2 days later, everything was fine, and I went home. And then the first night home, I didn't sleep at all. And then the second day I woke up and I took my baby and I went downstairs at 5 a.m. and I sat on the couch and I looked at my mother, and it was just, I say this in the film, it was a click. All of a sudden I went into this panic mode, and it's such an indescribable feeling. But like I said earlier, it's kind of like this monster takes over you and you can't escape from the monster. It's just like, you just want to run away, but you can't because it's stuck inside of you. And there was the beginning for me.
Yeah. It sounds like, Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think what Lindsay just said is so important because, when you see moms who are feeling disconnected from their babies or detached from their babies, moms, some moms will talk about going through the motions. It's not because they don't want to take care of their babies. They can't. The very thing that you need when you're a new mom, energy, enthusiasm, joy, motivation, pleasure, is the very thing that depression takes away from you.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
So I was so sick that they put me on so much drugs that I wasn't able to care for my son for about 4 months. And I remember a day for me would be walking around the house. And I remember I walked by his nursery and I would watch I was very lucky enough, many people can't do this, but I was very lucky enough to have a doula and a night nurse. And, I would walk by and I'd see her rocking him. And I wanted so badly for that to be me rocking him, but I couldn't do it. And that also put me in a deeper depression. Yeah. Because I didn't want to not care for my child. And it was almost like this feeling of I didn't think I knew how to feed him. I felt like I didn't know how to change his diaper. I didn't know how to care for him. It was these thoughts that were happening that just, they weren't real. I know how to change a baby's diaper, but it really seems so far out of reach to me for so long.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you describe it in the film as I don't remember who said it, but it was like a glass wall between you and the baby.
Shannon actually said that, my doula, it really is. It's like this glass wall that you can't break through.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think what you just said too is the idea that, and this is where I think it becomes the spectrum of where you are and the psychosis is understanding you want all those things. These all seem like they're, and any bad thoughts that you're having, they're not, you wouldn't act on it. That you wouldn't do anything to harm the baby. That's different than the psychosis when people actually go into psychosis and they have no. Can you explain a little bit more about that, Diana, for people? Just so that I think when I listened to it, I was like, I think a lot of moms may have those fleeting thoughts, you're so exhausted, the sleep deprivation, all those things, but that doesn't mean that they're psychotic.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that's the worst fear that a lot of women have is that they're psychotic and they're going to harm their baby. And psychosis is rare. It's really rare. It's only about 1 or 2 women who give birth. But it is considered a potentially life-threatening medical emergency, and it requires, medical attention. And usually, it means hospitalization so that we can stabilize the mom and keep her safe, along with a baby. And, if we're thinking about, it's interesting because even our ideas about what postpartum psychosis looks like have really changed over the years. And so this idea of, voices and, this kind of traditional idea of a lot of voices and directing your behavior. And yes, sometimes that happens, but not always. And sometimes there are what we call delusions, these belief systems that, but they're not always bizarre delusions. They're not always about religion or religious persecution or, like in Andrea Yates' case, trying to save the babies from Satan. There's a lot of confusion.
I think
Postpartum psychosis. Did you just lose me?
Just for a moment, just repeat what you just said because I want to hear every word, and it was just for a moment.
We're just talking about the symptoms and how we traditionally thought about it, and that's changing. We recognize that there's a much more broader spectrum of symptoms now in postpartum psychosis, like memory loss, like tremendous confusion, mania. We think that, that's when we talk about postpartum psychosis, we really conceptualize it as a manic episode. So women who may have a history of bipolar disorder, their risks are higher.
Yeah. And it's a true emergency situation. Anyone who is, if you're suspecting anyone's having that kind of an episode, I mean, it's really an immediate situation for depression or psychosis, but particularly in psychosis, we need to be addressing it immediately because as we saw in the film and as they will see as they continue to watch the movie, it's very real. You interviewed, Jamie Lynn, you interviewed a whole, a whole bunch of women who, had either hurt their child or, attempted suicide or had succeeded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was one of the most difficult things to do, but I think one of the most important because it's happening. And now, I mean, we're reading about this happening on a monthly basis. And we didn't want to shy away from that. We really wanted to, meet these women. And I have to say, I think it'll give people, so many people on this subject, as far as psychosis and infanticide and suicide, are very black and white, and they're a murderer or they're not. And I think that this will really give you an understanding of when you don't have control over your own thoughts. Yeah. And it was very eye-opening for me, not only learning about it, but meeting these women and, someone like Naomi going into her home and meeting her family. And she has no previous signs of depression. She had a wonderful, loving, supportive family, help support all the things that you would think would make this not happen. And I think that that's, one of the things that I think will be really eye-opening is their views on this after seeing the film. Yeah. And a better understanding.
I think it was a big part of it. I think it's the awakening everybody needs to see. Because it's the thing that kind of brings it all like, whoa, like, we need to be paying attention. This is serious. This is life and death. And if it was and I'm sure, Diana, you see this all the time. If it was a medical condition, we would be treating it as life and death and looking at it that way. And this is a medical condition. No, it is a medical condition. And hopefully this will help too. I think the more we talk about anything, when it comes to anything that, that has a stigma that's been, especially when it comes to mental health, we see this all the time with everything. But the more we discuss it, talk about it, do things like what we're doing right now. And I know you guys have been practically on tour, interviewing about the movie and everybody's so interested. And I'm just so happy that you're getting the exposure that you are all over the place and more people are going to get to see this. It becomes part of our daily conversation, which is exactly what we need it to be.
Yeah. And I just want to say that this film, this film is not an easy watch. It covers real stuff, but it shows hope. It will educate you. It will show you what's really going on. It will break the stigma and you will learn from it. And you could possibly save somebody's life by watching it. Mm-hmm. It's so important for anybody, not just new moms, to watch this film. Yeah. It's so important because between 1 in 5 new moms, you're going to know somebody.
Yep. Well, and I think it's also a lot broader. I think it in general gives you a better understanding of mental illness.
Yeah. In general too. Mm-hmm. I think it should be something that should be required to be watched in all childbirth classes.
That's what we're hoping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think also stories are really powerful. They're more powerful than a list of symptoms because they reach us. And I'm a very big believer. I mean, I've spent over 20 years, in the assessment and treatment of perinatal mood disorders, but I am a big believer that we need to listen to women's stories because the story is embedded in the symptoms. And when we understand story, then we can go a long way towards healing.
Yeah. And I think it also probably will bring more awareness to how we even treat moms after delivery or during birth. When we understand that there's actually post-traumatic stress that occurs with births that, don't always go. That's what you experienced, Lindsay. And their birth is not a controllable event. I know as a midwife, I know that, we hope for the best, we do the best we can, but there are ways to empower women to have them feel taken care of regardless of what might be happening. And so, whether it's a C-section or a vaginal delivery, there are ways that we can support women to go through this very emotional, physical and emotional time that, there's really not much you can compare to other in our lives that we go through, and to make it easier for them, to help to reduce the risk of this occurring. And then also when we heard from some of the people in the film talk about, other cultures in India and Asia where, they give moms time to rest. Everybody takes care of them. It just doesn't happen in our society. And you can see where this is like the perfect setup for everything. You can understand why it's so prevalent.
Well, I think sorry, Dana. I think that.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
Okay. I think that, as moms, as wives, as partners, we're supposed to be superhuman, and you're supposed to give birth and then get up and clean the house and cook dinner for your husband and kids or your partner and go back to work after 3 months if you decide to, and it's like all this stuff, but this is not a reality. When you, and Diana can tell you, when you deliver a baby, your body goes through so much, your hormones go through so much, and you need to recover. And it's not really fair that we have, in our society, these expectations. Plus there's the whole Facebook world of posting the most beautiful picture of your new baby with the photo shoot and everything's looking great. It's not reality. I didn't do that. I did not look good, and I did not take a picture of my throwing up baby. But it was hard for me because many of my friends did, and I was like, I need to look like that. I need to, I need to put some makeup on and take a picture so everyone thinks I'm okay. Not reality.
It's such an interesting point that you bring up. I think, when was it? Friday, we were talking about this on another show, and how the internet, when my children are 15 and almost 13, and it was not that long ago, but there was no internet. So I was not dealing with online anything. Hard to believe, right? But we did this with no internet. And in some ways, look what we're doing. What we're doing tonight is one of the ways that this can benefit moms, right? To make it easier to feel connected when they're isolated in homes where we know so many of them are. They have their online communities that they're, having conversations with, and that's where it can be really beneficial. But at the same time, I think the internet has set up a situation for moms where there is a lot of comparison. There's a lot of judgment. There's a lot of the information overload tells you how you should be. And then when it's not, that right there, I mean, Diana, you can probably attest to this, but it sets moms up for, you got Instagram, pages where these perfect, like you said, perfect lives that are not real anyway. Let's face it, it's not real. And then we compare ourselves.
Yeah. And also I really suggest, when you have it, I at 6 weeks, I pushed myself to go to this Mommy and Me group, and I had my son who had severe reflux, and all the babies were gooing and guying, and my son's throwing up over my shoulder, and I'm sitting there complete mess. And everyone went around and introduced themselves, and I was like, yeah, my baby's, talking already and walking, at 6 weeks old. And I'm like, hi, I'm Lindsay, and I have postpartum depression. I just want you to know that because sometimes I'm not going to be doing very well. What happened there is that everybody else started opening up. Oh my God, Lindsay, can we talk later? My baby has colic, I think, all this stuff. And it opens other people up. So what happens if we're honest? What happens if everyone is just honest?
Yeah.
It really will make a big difference.
Oh yeah.
I think we expect so much from moms, and it's so unrealistic and so unreasonable. I mean, they use sleep deprivation as torture in prisons, but we expect moms to be sleep deprived and worry about it.
Yeah, totally. That brings up a point, you went over in the film, we go over some of the things that put somebody more at higher risk, and sleep deprivation is one of them, which we're all going to experience, so there's more to it than just being sleep deprived, but it can add, if you've got other factors that going into it, then the sleep deprivation. And I think this is where the support comes in. Having the right support systems, to know ahead of time, to get family in there if you can't afford to have a doula or you can't afford to have a baby nurse, but ask friends for support. And
oh my gosh, ask your neighbor. If you don't have family close by, if you don't have friends, if you're not relying on anybody, ask a neighbor. Just ask somebody, like, hey, I got to take a shower, I need 5 minutes. Just find somebody to help you for a little bit.
Well, and there's a lot of moms group, like the Moms Club. The Moms Club organization is worldwide, and they have chapters, and it's a group for moms to get out and meet other moms and socialize, and it's all over the country. And I was part of it when I first had my first daughter, but we would hear stories of people that would babysit swap, and that's a thing that you can do. Like, okay, great, I'll watch yours for an hour on Friday and then you do that on Monday. Like, there's ways to go about it if you don't have the financial resources to give yourself some relief.
Yeah. And I think that also moms need to, if friends need to be offering, and Lindsay, you and I talked about this, not just saying, let me know if I can help you, because when you're in that position, you can't even think enough to say what you need help with, offering would be let me come over and do the laundry for you, or let me come over and bring some meals, or let me come over and clean your kitchen and do your bathrooms or whatever, and actually be really specific. I find that to be really helpful.
Drop off food.
Bringing meals is such a big one. It's such a big one, because then, especially if somebody has other children, you bring a lasagna or a casserole, and then the mother doesn't have to worry about it that night, which is such a nice thing.
I often say that one of the best baby shower gifts is a list of who's going to help when and what are they going to do.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. We don't need more things. We need more help, and we need more people around us.
There's also this big reality of that your spouse might not understand and might not be the most supportive person while you're going through this, because so many men or women don't know anything about postpartum depression. So their wife comes home and they have this big idea of what life is going to be like with a new baby and their wife is falling apart. And, my husband got very angry. And we talk about it in the film, and he talks about it. Yeah. And he was very unsupportive in the beginning. And I was completely alone. I had friends that told me, I had one friend that was one of my best friends, and she said, Lindsay, I just can't be around you. Let me know when you get better. And I think we have to realize that this is a reality. This is a big reality. And so that's also why this film's so important, because if husbands can watch this film and see, then maybe they'll understand more. Because really, can you expect them to understand? They don't know anything about it. They're just ready for their baby to come home and have a new life, have a family.
Yeah. And it goes even beyond that, because when I think of who's actually seeing the mom those first few weeks, you're discharged from the hospital so quickly after the birth. Probably it's not even setting in at that point. And if you've had a vaginal delivery, you're probably, I didn't see some of my patients till 6 weeks postpartum. They didn't come back. So, even if I did have the skills to assess and figure that out, I'd have to be relying on them to make the phone call, which many times they're they're not able to. And you need to, and so dads and partners, friends, parents, family, mom, in-laws, everybody needs to be aware, because they're the ones that are going to be around the new mom to actually make the phone call. And it was actually it's one of the only times that I talked to a dad, with patient confidentiality, that talked directly to the dad about my patient when I was a midwife. Was when it came to this, I would take the call and just talk directly, because they're the ones who are going to be looking for it.
Yeah.
I think also, all a family member has to do, or all a physician has to do, is say, how are you sleeping? Because one of the things we know about postpartum, and it's an innocuous question, it's a harmless question. Everybody will tell you how they're sleeping or not.
Yeah.
But it's actually a clue, because women with postpartum depression are not able to sleep. And even when the baby is sleeping, they're like wide-eyed, lying in bed, trying to get to sleep for hours.
Well, I was actually lying in bed obsessing over what it's going to be like when my son woke up and I had to take care of him, because I didn't know how I was going to do that. So it was just constant.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point, because it's so hard to distinguish between like not sleeping because the baby's awake, but not sleeping when the baby's asleep and you're still awake is a good thing for people to be aware of as one of the signs.
Yeah, exactly. And I think another thing to really, Diana can also talk about this, is breastfeeding. There's such a stigma to breastfeeding, and Diana, do you want to take that on? Because I think so many moms struggle with needing to breastfeed and thinking that they're supposed to, but it's too hard for them, and so they really struggle.
Yeah, I think it's very conflictual for many women. I mean, we do know that breast milk is good for babies. There's no question about that. Nobody's going to argue that, but it still is a personal decision, and it has to be made, with yourself. And there is so much judgment. I mean, it's just amazing to me, these days, you'll see somebody in the street, a perfect stranger, and they see that you're pregnant, and not the first, but maybe the second question out of their mouth is, are you going to breastfeed? I mean, to me, that's like saying, how many times a week do you have sex with your husband?
Yeah. It's true. It's such a personal question.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's just so much judgment, and I deal with it in my own practice, women who are really conflicted. And the most important thing that a baby needs is a present mother.
Absolutely.
Baby needs that more than he or she needs breast milk.
Yeah. And I'm going to say that as a lactation specialist and breastfeeding expert that teaches breastfeeding, I agree with you 100% that, and I think the studies do show that, for moms who are able to feel okay with their decisions of how they're going to feed their child, they have less incidence of postpartum depression. It's the ones that want to do it and then somehow are not able to do it, but they feel guilty about it. That leads to more depression than just choosing not to and feeling okay with that choice. And I think that comes from the support that you get from your providers too.
I also want to just add, because I think it's really important, a lot of doctors who are not comfortable or may not be sick, you've got to get off your meds.
Repeat that again.
Pregnant, you've got to get off.
You broke up. So that...
Sorry.
That's okay.
A lot of doctors who may not be knowledgeable will say get off your meds when you're pregnant. And there are a lot of medications, and I have tons of patients who are well cared for by reproductive psychiatrists who specialize in pregnancy and the postpartum period, there are a lot of meds that are compatible with breastfeeding.
Yes.
And compatible with pregnancy. Yes. So, women need to have the right care before they make a decision to either stop breastfeeding or, if they think it's because of meds.
Well, exactly. And I think it's such a personal decision. I breastfed for a week. I wanted to do longer, but I was in such bad shape that I think at one point I was on 11 different medications at once just to stabilize me. Obviously, I wasn't able to breastfeed my son. And because of the connection, I wasn't able to do it. Everything hurt. When you think about, mental health, you think it's just in the mind. No, postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, postpartum OCD, everything, it hurts your body. I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink, couldn't put the cup to my mouth. So breastfeeding to me was just too hard. And so, you know, I had to give it up. And I think I was in such bad shape, but I started feeling guilty about it like 2 years later. You know, like I was like, God, I really wish, because my son had some issues. And I was like, maybe if I breastfeed, but you can't do that because you can't go back. And it's okay. It's better to have a healthy mom who's on medication or whatever else they're doing to get better, because I'm not, you know, supporting medication for everybody, but then to struggle and breastfeed and struggle for longer than you should.
Definitely.
Lindsay said something very important.
As we're talking about some of the treatments, you know, obviously there's medications and then there's other alternative therapies too that do work, that they've seen good results with. What are some of the other treatments that moms could consider as well as medication?
Acupuncture. There are some, you know, they work for some women, but not for all women.
What was that?
Nutritional alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think, you know, and a plan of self-care, a wellness plan is an important adjunct to any treatment plan, making sure that you're eating properly, making sure that you're well hydrated, making sure that you're taking care of your spiritual self, getting exercise. These are all important adjuncts. You know, I just want to add also, because Lindsay said something very important about it hurt. Do you know the research shows that women who are experiencing depression during their pregnancies have more physical symptoms than women who are not. More backaches, more headaches.
Stomach, everything.
Stomach aches, yeah.
But also in the film, we talk about every treatment option, not just medication. We talk everything from medication. And Jamie Lynn, you can add to that. I mean, I also did, you know, EMDR and cognitive behavioral therapy. I did something called TMS, and I mean, there's so many different options. And we had people that treated them, you know, that got better through, you know, Jamie Lynn, do you want to talk about like how Tanya?
Yeah, like that's the one thing about the film is we cover, you know, from baby blues to psychosis, everything in between. And we show you how each woman in the film got better from this. And it's a variety of different treatments. What works for one person is not going to work for someone else. So we don't hone in on one thing and, you know, promote that. We just let these women honestly, you know, share their stories and what they did to get better. And so I think that you'll find, if you're going through this, you will find someone in the film, hopefully, that you will be able to relate to.
I feel like that's so true. You did really show so many different examples of how women can experience this. And that's what I loved about it. You know, even when I forgot her name, but one of the women in the film who said that, you know, she was worried about having it with her last baby. She had 2 boys and then she had a girl and then she didn't have it.
Yeah, Vanessa.
And you know, the fear of like having another baby, and then to see the example of like she was okay and it was okay for her to have another child. And so I thought it was really great how you did that. And just like you said, everybody can relate to someone.
And therapy is also a very important part of treatment.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You know, homeopathy was something that my sister's a homeopath, and during pregnancy for a couple of my patients, she did treat them during pregnancy and had some really good results with that too. So there's all kinds of things to try out and, you know, in a safe way too. So that's even a little less invasive in some ways and had some really good results. I just want to mention that as well. Yeah. You know, we talked about partners, and Lindsay and I are planning to do more episodes together. We're gonna make this a little bit of a series, because I think that continuing to keep the conversation going, to keep the to actually bring on some of the dads for this conversation the next time, I think would be really great. I really got a lot out of hearing your husband speak, and just the understanding of like and how real that was, like in that moment to like really acknowledge like that nobody ever asked him, nobody, like all of that was huge.
Jamie Lynn interviewed my husband, I think my son was 6 at the time, and I was still struggling. And not until I saw the final film did I see what my husband said in the interview. And it brought us so much closer because it made him realize what he went through, and it made me see him as going through something too.
Yeah.
I think also for men, sometimes fear registers. No.
One more time. It broke up. Go ahead.
I keep losing the connection.
It's okay. It's the internet connection, but I'll let you know because we want to hear every word. So go ahead.
That for men, fear often registers as anger. Did you hear it this time? Yeah.
Yes, and that's so true. I mean, my husband and I used to scream at my husband, and he was so mad at me. I mean, it used to be brutal. And that doesn't help you get better.
Yeah, totally.
But he was probably really scared.
Yes.
So before, I don't want to finish without talking a little bit about the resources that are available for moms. So if you're out there right now, if you're listening to this conversation or you're watching a replay, because I think this episode is going to be replayed many times and you can go back, it'll be right here on my Facebook page. I'm sure Lindsay, you'll post it on yours as well, for moms to see. And share, please share this. I mean, I think that if someone couldn't be here tonight, it's totally fine. You can go back, you can watch it, you can see the chat, and get something out of it. But what are some of the resources that they could reach out to? We've had moms in the chat room tonight or through the thread say, I'm experiencing this right now.
Diana, do you want to take that?
Well, Postpartum Support International, I think, is one of the best resources. They have what we call coordinators all over the world who act as liaisons between, women and families who need help and the resources in the community.
And they also have a warm line. So if you're struggling right now, you can call, leave a message on the warm line, and within 24 hours, somebody will call you back and either provide you with resources in your area or talk to you and just listen to how you're feeling and help guide you.
Yeah.
And if you have any questions about anything else, I'm available on our Facebook page, and you can message us and I'll get back to you right away and, help in the right direction.
I will add that you can message our Facebook page. Lindsay responds we get hundreds of messages, and Lindsay responds and has conversations with everyone. It is it's one of the reasons I love her. It's such an amazing admiration that she does that. And she's truly, helping women and because she cares so much.
Thanks.
So
I also just wanted to add that for those women who are in LA, Maternal Mental Health Now has a resource directory. And so the website, I think, is maternalmentalhealthla.org.
Okay. Joe pinned the Postpartum International here. So Postpartum International. So if you guys need that link, it's right here posted in the chat room. We also are going to be keeping connected with you to give you more information right on my Facebook wall. When you guys are done, if you just click sign up, we're going to send you more information, everything, resources, whatever you need. That way we can announce anything that comes up if you need to stay connected. And please go over to the link that's right here in this post. You just have to click on it. It takes you right over to When the Bough Breaks Facebook page. Like the page, comment there, interact with Lindsay, and reach out. I mean, the biggest thing I think we got out of just even talking tonight is really important to not stay quiet, to really say, even if you're suspecting it, even if you're having thoughts, your feelings, whatever it is, but to talk to somebody. Maybe that's
Lindsay.
Lindsay.
Promise you, you're not alone. Where you are not alone. Somebody has gone through this exactly what you're going through, and it's really hard, and you will get through it. You just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other and get help and get support, and you're going to be okay.
One of the lines in the film that stays with me and will forever is when Vanessa says it's amazing when you share how many stories you'll hear back. And I think that's, universal about any subject, and especially with this and, with moms across the world. So I think it's really powerful. You'd be surprised when you open up what'll come back, and how well received, and how much help, and how much people actually really care.
Yeah. No, it's such a good point. Such a good point. Yeah, ladies, I just, can you believe that the whole hour went by already?
No, we can talk for hours. Let's go.
I told you, it's very fun. And the chat room.
Another one when people watch the film, we could have a Facebook Live discussion about the film and any questions anybody has.
Yeah, Q&A would be great.
You were invited back anytime, anywhere. We will do more.
We're so
for
grateful.
sure. Oh, I'm so grateful.
Thank you so much. It means so much to us.
We're all doing this together here tonight. I think it was such a great conversation. Everybody got so much out of it. You'll go back and read the chat afterwards, and you'll see we have an amazing group. Thank you, everybody who joined us, and for all your beautiful comments and all your honesty and your support for one another. I think that's what I love so much, reading the chat every single week, regardless of the topic. You're amazing. So I have an amazing community. I mean, they're amazing, and they support each other. It's loving. Everybody's non-judgmental. We don't tolerate that here. It's been like that for years, and they know that. There's no room for that. There's no room for that here. So this is a safe place for you guys to post, and we will do more together for sure. You guys are welcome back anytime. Thank you for all the beautiful work that you're doing. I support you 100%. Joe and I are very grateful for the work that you're doing, and whatever we can do to help you. So thanks for being with us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
I'm going to stop the stream now, and we'll see you soon. Have a good week, everybody. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.